Welcome back. Youth and governance. That is what we're discussing here. Okay, Judge Kithi. He says that they're ready, as a legal body, they're ready to support and represent any other person who will be breaking the law, including you as a protester. If you break the law, you will suffer as an individual, including the law enforcers, the police officers. You will also face the law as an individual. It cuts both ways. But let me ask you, gentlemen, so what will soften the stance of the protesters? We are here now. We are getting to the second week, and this is the most crucial one for the finance bill, and they want a total of actually to be set aside. So what will soften their stance? Fadela.
I love the conversation we are having, and that is if anyone is listening in terms of governance and government, what this government lacks is something known as a human face. A human face is to show that you have an understanding of what people are going through, all right? The other day we witnessed the demolitions that were happening during a rainy season, all right? So there is no human face. Last week you had these guys, the way they were talking and saying these Gen Zs, the KFC and the likes, the way they were what I call verbal diarrhea towards Shiko, they were clearly showing they don't have a human face. If the government is to have an impact to this generation right now, they should have a human face and show we feel. Like you see what the president said, we are willing to have a conversation. But go a bit extra, all right? Go a bit extra and show you're willing to meet them halfway. That way, everyone will pose and say, the government and the president has shown us he has a human face, he understands. But they don't want to be taken for a ride because you came and said from bottom to up, but we are feeling the pinch and the heat. So for me, I think they should have come up with a human face to show we understand the plight of the people. Yeah. But if you're in a cocoon where 2 or 4, where the majority have their say and the minority have their way, then we do not want these things to escalate. So for the president and his retinue, they need to just have a human face at this particular hour and show we're willing to meet you guys.
Yes, Wakili, what will soften their stance?
Well, first, I do think the president must rein on his representation. The people, I have not had the president rhetoric on this. So he's very careful on how he pronounces himself. But the people who brazenly are insulting the public and making it clear that come what may, we are in leadership and we'll have our way. I think the communication, a platform for the president is either misused or alternatively completely in disarray. And therefore, the government, one characteristic of this government is that it does not process itself in an amiable manner for the person to be able to understand it. Even if it is doing good things, those things are completely unavailable for the consumption of the public because of how it communicates. Somehow there seems to be indiscipline in the cabinet on how they bespeak to the people, and the indiscipline in those that are seen to be the face of the present representation, especially members of parliament. It is possible to have a conversation, and I did see, for instance, President Uhuru Kenyatta sometimes talking to the people. You saw him during COVID. It was a very oppressive moment. Yes. But he will take responsibility personally and cajole on the people and express the hope and willingness continuously. One of the reasons why you become a leader is to give people hope. Continuously rallying them around a cause. Where is the cause here? Where is the cause other than the insults that we see on public forums? Whether it's about shareholders, whether this thing will go through, whether you like it or not, we have the numbers calling each other names. I think that's indiscipline. So to give us hope, you don't insult us. There's a way you talk to us, and we will understand because it's communication. So the government needs to be a good communicator. Number 2, that which is a prime mover of all this is the budget. You need to communicate to us that the issues, either an overhaul of the issues that are contentious are being addressed. And number 3, in any event, the laws that we've made, including Constitution and the Public Finance Management Act, and all laws that are coalescing around the budgeting process. Have provisions on what should happen if the budgeting cycle is disrupted in the manner that is being threatened here. So you can't tell us this is cast in stone, it must pass. If you are saying we need a conversation, we are the country. We always, I mean, we've overhauled an entire constitution in this country.
Yeah.
And we can do it. And therefore, alone budgeting, honestly, cannot
be a process, though.
That which is cast in stone.
Yeah.
And we have provisions on what happens if the budget is not passed. But it is not the first time. The last time we had the Senate. I mean, there was a problem on the formula for division. And eventually it was passed. But it had a record 12 times within which it was rejected. The reason is there was this 1 shilling, one thing, all that argument that we had.
Yeah.
So that was at that time also a crisis of sorts, but we sorted ourselves out. This time, it is not in Parliament, in the Senate. It is not in Parliament, in the August House. It is the people themselves.
Demanding for the total...
That time it was the representative. This time it is the people.
Yes.
So it's the same thing.
So it
what
is,
we are saying is,
as it was sorted then, and okay to set it aside.
Yes, as it was sorted then, through meetings and discussion, and updating the public, it should be sorted now. It should not be a big deal. It should be able to be sorted. But when we see the rhetoric that is going on until we've reached where we are, it is because something is wrong somewhere. Yeah. Not with the people. It is the leadership.
It is the leadership.
I was going to say the aspect of being fair.
Yes.
To Mr. Speaker, where you find
to Mr. Speaker,
where you find Solomonic wisdom is needed at this hour. You remember there was a time where if the country came to a place, and like he's well articulated it, it comes to a place where Solomonic wisdom is needed at this hour for fairness. And that fairness is like, put it aside and let everyone have this conversation with everyone. Now, he mentioned about President Uhuru, and you see the way we navigated through COVID, and the president would come talk and help us understand as a people.
Fellow Kenyans.
Fellow Kenyans.
Until people are like...
You now know fellow Kenyans.
Fellow Kenyans.
And the way you would respond.
Yes.
So I agree. If the president can come down and be fair, he's like the mediator this hour who needs to come down and say, hey, people, let's go this way. And tone your guys and make sure they toe the line so that we don't have that verbal diarrhea that we are seeing outside there. For me, that fairness and then coming through as a human face, and you can put it aside, like the legal expert has said, I think it's possible. It's possible.
And life will find its own path.
Yeah.
So there's the Gen Z, all the protesters are saying that they are fighting for their parents. And you can see clearly that the older generation are not on the streets. It's the younger generation who are on the streets. And when you listen to them, what they say is, we are fighting for our parents who are overburdened. We are fighting for our parents who are now paying the taxes. But then we are also being told, even if you're not working, you're still going to be taxed. But the key word here, we are fighting for the injustices that our parents and all our older folks fought for. Wakili, let me ask you, so at this particular point, the Gen Z is now fighting for their fathers and their mothers and the older generations. That has come a long way. So somebody would say, then it's like taking a bottle of soda, shaking it, and then all of a sudden you pop up the bottle. We all know what happens.
No, I think what they're doing is a constant with our society. You know, none of us asked to be a Kenyan. I didn't ask to be a Kenyan. I didn't ask. In fact, I may be regretting to be one. But the point is this. The point is this. We woke up and one day we were Kenyans.
It's an interesting day in Kenya.
Yes. We woke up and one day we were Kenyans. Yes. The point is, before Kenya became, we were there as a people. Variegated in our own ways, the Maasai, the Mijikendas, the whatever, all over. But one day we were put together in a geographical setup called Kenya. And we mutated into this governance story that we are discussing today. And therefore, because we have rules yet we were different, everyone for fairness has to toy to the rule. That's one. Two, in those days, when the Maasais are going to take the cows of the Kambas and the Kambas are taking the goats of this one, if you have to defend yourself, you take the youth to defend you. That's what we are doing. We are taking the youth to defend us. So the older folk, therefore, relies on the youth for existence of society. What are the youth doing? They're preserving the society.
Yes.
Because the threat is unto the older people who seem to have their own weaknesses. For instance, if you're a civil servant, you won't go to the streets. But the youth knows that he's fed by the job with his father. And the father, therefore, is the one that remains in the mosque. But the protestation has the blessings of the parents. So it is the societal youth that preserve the society, and not the other way. And therefore, as we did it then, we are doing it now. What it means, therefore, is it's properly in order for the youth to fight, not only for society, but for themselves, but for the entire society. The issues being discussed have nothing to do with 1 shilling, 1 tribe, and therefore we are many and we contribute more. No.
Yeah.
They have never mentioned a tribe and they're tribeless. They have never mentioned a class and they're classless.
Not even a party. They
don't even have a political party. And by the way, they have rejected any political interruptions. They are organizing themselves. Point is, how did it even get there? How did it even get there? It got there because there has been persistence and consistency in the wrong that is being perceived, which was not addressed, and they were ignored. Now look at where it is. If you continue to ignore them, of course, there's a build-up every day. This is how it's going to happen. If the youth are going to persist and there's resistance, there is another forum. The millennials have not jumped in. The middle class has not even jumped into this forum. We are still watching the Gen Zs. And the older folk, as you have said, have not jumped in. When it gets there, there'll be a revolution. And therefore, it is good that the conversation we have now is a conversation for everyone. Let us discuss it. Let us discuss it. You can't ignore the youth. You can't be planning without them because they want the jobs. In fact, show me in this budget where the jobs are. Tell me in this budget, from this budget we have 1,000 jobs. None. And I've said, even if there is, the government is a bad communicator.
Article 37 and 33, completely in force. Go ahead. Fadela.
The generation that we're dealing with right now, my plea, and I appreciate where they're coming from, and I appreciate the way they're organizing themselves, is to get to a place whereby they will hold this nation to accountability. And for me, the political class, this includes the president and his retinue of cabinet and ministers, they should get to a place where they have an ear to listen. Old men will dream dreams. Young men will have visions. And these guys have the strength. They have the will. You will know a father by the strength of the son. So this generation, the way they're coming up, they have the strength, they have the vitality, and they have something at their disposal which is a strength which we never had in our times, which is the digital space. And they have mastered. When you see the DCI saying, we want to ask the Gen Zs, help us locate this person, the DCI, and the Gen Zs will go and they will get, and they will even send the picture and send even the way when you were married and your car. You know, these guys have an element that the nation needs. And so for me, the youth are the ones fighting. And if the president does not listen, then he's going to put other people to come in. Once they come in, now that one has taken, it's going to be a rolling moss that it's going to gather moss.
Yes.
And so for me, the youth, the vitality they have, they're doing good, but there is a caution. And that's why I repeated by saying, the way they say register as voters, for me that's the best way, because in the near future, they will be the ones to decide who will be the MCA all the way to the governance. So let them do that, and let the governance and the presidents be at a place where they begin to realize we need to hearken.
I'm told we're running out of time, but let me ask you this question, gentlemen. Do you think there's a hidden hand, a political hidden hand somewhere?
Well, I think there are definitely the subconscious of politics in this. Yes, there's a platform building up for the opposition in this protest. That's a platform for the opposition, not for government. But again, there's also a platform for government if the government is wise enough to use this movement to its advantage. Basically address them and put them on your fold, because it's possible. It's not all lost. How this is handled defines the future, especially 2027. It has all bearings of 2027.
That was my last question I wanted to ask you.
It has all bearings of 2027.
Did you take my notes? It's like you took my notes. So what effect does it have? As you also answered that was finalized, what effect does it have on 2027?
Before that, there's a group known Anonymous. They would like to take advantage of the instability of a government.
Yes.
And they're getting
some hidden hand somewhere.
The hidden hand.
Yeah.
And we do not want to get to a place where this movement is hijacked. And the ripple effect of this 2027, where you had Baba with about this, Ruto with about this, then there's the 8 million that did not vote. This is where they're going to galvanize and bulk their votes. So this is not a movement that needs to be taken lightly, because if they can do this, how much more in terms of an election campaign? No, you didn't see anyone talking, but they marshaled themselves. So for me, it's going to get to a place whereby it becomes a very serious political move that can destabilize the elite. And for me, it's good, because millennials and Gen Zs constitute of about 57 to 60% of the votes. And they are the ones that constitute about 80% of this generation. So if they plan the way they are doing now, this is more for me like a referendum of sorts.
Imagine you have a Gen Z president.
Can you imagine? it happened in, I think it's Ecuador, where the president came in.
Yeah, the DJ. He was voted, remember the DJ president?
And he was voted in, and he...
Rajolina.
You see? Yeah. So it's possible. But here's the thing. Accountability and vision and purpose. We are getting to a place where we'll have a Kenyan dream. A Kenyan dream where you say, yes. You know, like Americans, where they say the American dream, the way we are going, we'll have a Kenyan dream. Because now we'll be clear on terms of manifestos.
My landed friend, tumalizie tumaende.
Yes, I think the clarion call to the presidency and the government is, these protesters are not irritants, neither the imbeciles. They are people who know what they are doing. The presidents who've handled world wars in this country, they are in this world. They are presidents who've handled crisis all over the world and made it by standing with the people. I think it is time that President Ruto looks at this not as an irritation. It is probably a development of our democracy. He should then go in history as having faced this crisis and come out on top for the people and not for his government.
Gentlemen, tumalizie hapo. Thank you so much. It has been an amazing discussion. I wish you had more time, but hey, we'll have another more time so that we can continue this discussion. Thank you so much for joining me. Jasiel Njau, who calls himself Fadel. He never passed a WhatsApp status.
In 2017 and 2022, I ran and I was cleared by IBC in 2021.
At least you went
as governor of
the status.
I passed WhatsApp status. In 2022, I went and made it to TV, and the party refused me. So coming soon.
You're a fighter. You're a fighter. Wakili, thank you so much for joining me as well. Asante sana. You know what? Anything you do, there is somebody called Aristotle. He said, everything you do, do it with moderation. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Victor Oloo. Good morning.